Good evening, folks, and happy Wednesday. For those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso, and I'm a physical therapist here in chilly, iguana dropping from the trees, monitor lizard housing, Florida. Yes, you heard that correctly. I've been a PT now for a little over 23 years, and my passion is working with the limb loss community. So tonight's headliner question is, do you really need to practice walking during your physical therapy session? Stick with me for this one. So pull up a chair, tell me who you are, where you're from, what is in your mug as we get started with Cosi Talks Live. All right, guys, welcome back. So we had an amazing show last week with Bill Hatton from Sleeve Saver. And then 2 weeks prior to that, another amazing show with Rochelle Wright from Integrum. And it's been a banger month. It's been a banger month here on the Cosi Talks live show. So today I'm actually just kind of still enjoying all the effects from this past month. But I'm happy to be with you guys tonight, just answering your questions here. And we've got a really great questions here. But let me just start by saying good evening to my folks. We got Rex on board, popsicle in hand, enjoying spring-like weather in Kansas. Spring-like weather in Kansas. Holy smokes. We got, let's see, Pop 19 in New York with his water. Robert Jones coming in from Georgia with coffee in his cup, hopefully with Bob Bubbles by his side. We got Stacy coming in from Michigan. She's got an Arnold Palmer in her drink. Scott listening to me from the YouTube channel saying, good evening, everyone from Pleasant, West Virginia today. Cold water in his cup. Scott, I've got somebody I want you to talk to. We're going to get back to that one. We got Harsh coming on board saying cheers with water from Richmond, Virginia. Chuck coming in from Wyoming. Stuck in Denver trying to get to Oklahoma City to see Jay Martin tomorrow with his iced tea. All right, we got a lot of folks on board this evening. We got Kelly Smith in Michigan drinking Vernors. Kelly, I think this is your first time on the show. I don't have to recognize your name, so welcome aboard. We got Mark coming in Colorado. Donna coming in from Wyoming as well. Let's see. We got Ashley Martin in Middle Tennessee with some Mick Ultra tonight. Don't tell her principal. Shh, it's our secret. We got Marianne coming in from South Dakota as well. We got my other Mary coming in from Florida. There's my girl right there with her Merlot. Sean coming on board as well from Jacksonville. Yeah, I changed it up a little. What do you think, Stacy? What do you think? You can either be a Jacqueline or a Marilyn Monroe. I think, why not do both? Let's see. We got Helen coming in from Edmonton from Canada here. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. Yeah, I got lots of hairs cut. We got Mike coming in from California. Yes, Pastor David, something new. What do you think? Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Just like to change it up every once in a while. John coming in with ibuprofen water in Georgia after rolling his ankle. Ooh, this evening while first coaching daughter's soccer practice. Ouch. Ouch. When the physical therapist needs a little physical therapy right there. Christy coming in from Auburn, Nebraska. Hey, thanks, Christy. I appreciate that very much. Sean has his ginger ale. Man, we got a lot of people. We got Jamie from Chicago. How do you like my cup, folks? I'm debuting a couple of new looks tonight. What do you think? Yeah, little surprise on the inside with the red. All right. Keep your eyes peeled, folks, because it's going to soon become available on the Cosi Talks website. And actually, guys, now that I have you on board, I would love to do a thanks. What do you think? What do you think? Just don't tell Jack. Pat says, hey, South Shore, taking out of 31 degrees of snow. Holy smokes, man, with hot chocolate and marshmallows. Yeah, you're going to need that hot chocolate tonight. Absolutely. Sir, thank you, guys. I appreciate it very much. Oh, thanks, you guys. You guys are awesome. So, hey, now that I have you guys on board, I need to do a poll. I was going to put this on social media, but I really want to get as many different answers as possible. So, guys, between eBay, Poshmark, whatnot, which platforms, if any, do you guys use, whether it's eBay, you even have heard Poshmark or whatnot? Let me know. Let me know. So I'm going to post them up here, eBay, Poshmark, or whatnot. Okay. Please, please, please. And my Instagram folks as well. I need to know where you guys purchase from, if you purchase from any of these places, okay? There's a reason for this, is trying to find you guys the lowest possible, because I'm going to be putting out this nice little coffee mug plus a few other items that might be of interest. And I want to get the price and shipping as low as possible. So I need your input. I need you to let me know, when you guys go shopping, do you guys do eBay, Poshmark, whatnot, or you've never heard of any of those, or you don't use any of those platforms? Okay. So the headliner question for tonight, I'm sure that if any of my fellow clinicians are listening in, they're going, where is she going with this one, right? Because the headliner question is, do you really need to practice walking during your physical therapy session? And this came about from an absolutely lovely patient session that I had yesterday. Just one beautiful patient and his wife came in to see me yesterday. And he's watched the show. That's how he found out about me. And he was asking me, he said, Cosi, I remember like in one of the shows you said that physical therapy and all they do is walk you around on a walker and for your physical therapy session, that's really not physical therapy. So I was thinking about that. And I was like, you know what? Yes, I have mentioned along the line something like that in several of my shows, especially for those of you asking me, like, how do I go about finding a physical therapist? And I have mentioned that. So I want to elaborate a little bit on that. Okay. When it comes to physical therapy, a lot of people have this notion that either we do like massage or always walk people with walkers, right? That's what a lot of the doctors think. They think we're just walkers, right? And it's like, no, that's not really how it works. Okay. When it comes to amputee gait, right? There is so involved in the foundation side of the gait. Okay. What do I mean by the foundation? I mean, reestablishing proprioception, reestablishing the balance, not just only strengthening muscles, but teaching the different muscle groups how to work together. We call that neuromuscular reeducation. Those of you who've been watching the show, you've heard me use those terminology before, right? You can have really strong muscles, but if they don't know how to work together, if they're being motor morons, that's one of the expressions we use sometimes, and your muscles don't know how to work together, doesn't matter how strong you are, right? And there's so much of that has to be put into place before you take your first steps outside of the parallel bars, okay? So, there's a lot that goes into it. And it's different, for example, than someone who has a polytrauma, who's perhaps fractured a femur, or someone who has had a replacement or a knee replacement, right? The concept with them is get them out of bed, get them walking, walking, right? Amputation, it's a little bit different. Do we want people up and walking? Yes, of course. We want that, especially immediately post-op. We want those benefits of getting the person out of bed, getting them upright, getting them moving, okay? But when it comes to the real meat and potatoes of the gait training, okay, I would say, and I had to kind of think about this a little bit, that in the entire rehabilitation process, 2/3 of that process are spent inside the parallel bars for my patients. And I would love to hear from my fellow physical therapists right now and just start chiming in on this one and just kind of think about it, especially those PTs who have amputee experience, right? My time are spent, my hands on my patients in the parallel bars. Okay. And we're working on, again, proprioception, loading that prosthesis. Okay. Teaching the brain how to trust that prosthesis. Lots of loading in a closed chain, meaning with the foot fixed on the floor. A lot of balance work. Okay. And again, a lot coordinating these muscles to work. The process of walking is kind of complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on. The gait cycle, one gait cycle alone, meaning the time it takes for you to take one step with one foot, one step with another foot, and then repeat with that first foot, that's one gait cycle. There's 8 phases within one gait cycle. Okay. There are hundreds of research papers and articles of what happens in just that one tiny 2 little steps, one step with each foot gait cycle. Okay. So if you just kind of tell a person, just get on a walk, all the brain can do is just focus on not falling, right? The brain just goes into survival mode. And it's just like, okay, one foot in front of the other, one foot in the other, go, don't fall, just don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And your physical therapist is thinking the same thing. Don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, right? Your brain doesn't have time to assimilate everything that's going on within that little gait cycle, okay? So you have to break it down in the parallel bars. And we use the parallel bars because it's a safe space, right? Our brains need that safe space. We talk about safe space. That's a very pop culture terminology right now, but that is the case in parallel bars and rehab world, right? Where your brain can just turn off the fear of falling because you're in a safe environment with the parallel bars and can focus on the little bits and pieces of the gait training cycle. Okay. And there's a lot that I have to see in my patient. Now, there's the practical side of it, right? Because obviously it's like, okay, well, my patient's not going to spend 2/3 of the rehab process in a wheelchair, right? Going around their house. No. Okay. So usually what I do with my patients is, they need to learn how to get from point A to point B with a walker, crutches, whatever it is that they're using safely. And in my situation where my patients are coming to me in the outpatient clinic, usually my patients are coming to see me now weeks, months, sometimes even years after their amputation. So the majority of them are able to move around their home quite well with their walker by this point, and many of them are even moving around in their community, okay? So for that part, for the practical side of it, yes, we practice just enough in physical therapy so that you can be safe walking around with your walker and with your crutches and with your canes. Yes, of course. But when it comes to the gait training, so much of it is spent inside the parallel bars, and it's working on balance, loading the prosthesis, okay? And then just taking one step and repeating that one step and correcting the mechanics in that one step, and then taking 2 steps, and then slowly but surely putting those things together. And here's the part. A lot of times when my patients, like a lot of folks have seen me on the show, so they've heard me talk and they have a nice level of understanding now when they come see me. But there's some patients who've never seen the show. So I'm telling them this, right? And they're just like, why are we spending so much time in the bars? When do I get to go outside the bars? Okay. And it takes a little time to trust the process, right? So we spend 2/3 of the whole rehab process, a lot of it in the bars. But the cool thing is when we've laid that foundation, that last 1/3, people just whiz by it. They whiz by it and they just jump levels of mobility there. All right. I see all these comments flying in. I want to see what's going on here. Let's see what you guys think about all of this. Okay. Woo. Lots of good comments. Okay. So a lot of you, it sounds like eBay, Whatnot. Okay. Whatnot. Some of you are on Whatnot. Some of you don't use anything, none of these platforms. Okay. Let's see. Amazon. All right. Some people purchase from Facebook, eBay. Ashley says, I don't use anything. I prefer buying from the website, from the seller. eBay. I'm Stacey says, because apparently I'm old, but my much cooler daughter uses Poshmark. Stacey, you got to check out Poshmark. It's a lot of fun. Lots of eBay. Okay. Johnny V from Poughkeepsie, New York in the Cosi Talks house. Mike says, I'm a PTA and I focus on standing, balance, and walking with less assistive devices. Yeah. Let's see. Robert says, I think, yes, there are things seen by the physical therapist and not the amputee that needs fixing. Yeah. Mary says, used to teach on the West Side. Okay. Iced tea. Let's see. All right. So, Jim from Ohio's on board. Good to see you, Jim. Let's see. John says balancing and stability. Yeah. And again, the way I have my treatments now, guys, it's very different than from when I first started as a physical therapist. It's even very different from when I opened up my private practice here in Tampa 8 years ago. Okay. A lot of it is because the kind of patient I see in my practice is different from the patients I would see in home health and in the hospital settings, right? So I had to adjust my protocols. How often I see my patients is also very different. I used to see patients 2, sometimes even 3 times a week. Now, many times I see patients 1 time a week, but we make a lot of progress, right? Let's see. Stacy says, walk more as long as your body can handle it. Muscle memory is a hurdle. Yes. Okay. Now here's the other side of it, guys. Once I get my patients outside of the bars and I'm doing the real heavy training of the gait training outside the parallel bars, okay, then I switch gears, right? Then I go back to, okay, now that we've got you walking safely outside of the bars, and let's say we've graduated you to one cane or graduated you to no walking devices, then we're going to hit the walking, right? Then I look at a walking program on how we can get you walking longer distances, how we can get you back into the community, walking on uneven terrain, walking in the grass, sidewalks, stairs, stamps, the whole kit and caboodle, right? Then it kind of switches gears, okay, in that regard. But again, that's like the tail end of the treatment, and it goes by quickly, especially if you have that foundation. If you don't have that foundation, that's when you get stuck on a walker. That's when you get stuck with the two crutches and with the cane, and you can't progress further. Okay. That's probably one of the top 5 questions I get on this show every week, guys. I have at least one person who's either emailing me or texting me and asking me, how can I get off the cane? How can I get off the walker? I'm practicing walking, but I'm not getting anywhere. Okay. You got to do the meat and potatoes foundation work right there. All right. Scott says, my new physical therapist is 90% parallel bars and still no walking with the walker, which I can do myself. Right. So Scott, for example, you're in that spot right now with your rehab care. Okay. Where you're able to get around your home. Okay. Relatively safely with your walker. Okay. Great. That's what we need to get you functioning on a daily basis, right? Just to get you from point A to point B. So that way, during your treatment session, your physical therapist is hopefully focusing, right, on everything to fill in those gaps to then hopefully progress you someday to a higher level of mobility. Okay. And then let's see. Peggy says, I've had physical therapy with studies. Now I have legs, which I practice now. I love my physical therapy in conjunction, and I'm a bilateral amputee. Yeah. And especially for my bilaterals, again, that foundation, I can't. And guys, it never ceases to fascinate me when I have someone come in, right? And they're telling me, I've been practicing, I've been trying, I can't seem to progress. And on the inside, I'm just going, because wait till we do the work we're going to do, and we're going to fill in those gaps. And as we start doing, again, the weight shifting exercises, loading that prosthetic side, and I just see my patients like the light bulbs going off, okay? These seemingly very simple exercises that can be so effective. Right. And even in one treatment session, my patient will go away saying, holy smokes, I'm feeling things moving in my body, and that I just haven't felt in all this time. Right. We got Jerry Ann coming in from Tennessee. Christy says, I need gait training. I'm walking with one cane balance, suck shaky with cane, and I start physical therapy in March, and I'm afraid of falling. Yeah. And again, guys, like whether your highest level of mobility is walking with no assistive devices or a cane or crutches or a walker. And by the way, I don't consider that to be a failure. So let me just reiterate that. There are some people that their highest level of independence will be walking around with a walker. But I want you walking as far as you possibly can with that walker. And I want you confident with that walker. And I want you to feel like you are independent with that walker. Does that make sense? Okay. So Jamie says, I still use a cane outside in public as a left transmetatarsal amputee and debridement of both heels from frostbite 3 years ago. Is that common, or should I be doing better? And again, Jamie, it's like playing Monday morning quarterback. You from your thumbnail picture, you seem like you're a young guy, right? I would venture to ask, what is it that's holding you back? Are you wearing any kind of prosthetic or orthotic devices there? Is pain an issue? Like, what is it that's holding you back, and why are you still using a cane? And again, that involves a little bit digging into your history and just finding out, okay, what were you like before your amputations? Were you walking independently? What does your medical history look like now? Your overall medical health and condition? Again, are you having any issues with pain? If you're using any kind of a prosthetic device or an insert or an orthosis of any kind, is it fitting well? Is it fitting comfortably? Did you receive physical therapy afterwards to get the gait training in place? A lot of times, what I find is folks who are very young or folks who have lower level amputations, they don't get the physical therapy. They don't get the physical therapy. I've had people who are above the knee amputees that don't get recommended for physical therapy. It blows my mind, right? And this is to me a detriment to the patient and your plan of care. Okay. And unfortunately, it could result in a year down the line that you're still using a cane when otherwise you could potentially be walking without one. Right. Let's see. Robert says the hardest part of walking was training my brain to neutralize the weight of the prosthetic against my good leg. Yeah, and again, it's getting your brain to accept that leg as its own. I've been asked to speak at the Georgia Society of Orthotists and Prosthetists. So every state, right? You have the American Association of Orthotists and Prosthetists, like that's the big national organization. And then every state has their own chapter. And every once in a while, I get asked to go speak at one of their conferences. So I've spoken at the California conference, I've spoken at the Florida conference, and I'm very honored to be speaking at the Georgia conference in April, right? And I will be teaching a 3-hour CEU. And I was actually working on that today. And that was one of the questions was, what are some of the similarities, okay, when working with an amputee gait training and working with someone who's had a traumatic brain injury or a stroke. Okay. And here are the similarities. The brain cannot recognize the limb or the leg. Okay. Sense of proprioception is impaired and affected, right? There is difficulty trusting the affected limb. Okay. So there's a lot of similarities even between amputee gait training and training with someone who's had a neurological injury like traumatic brain injury or stroke. And the reason why I like to present that with my colleagues with physical therapists is because a lot of physical therapists, they treat stroke patients. They may not have ever seen an amputee, but what they don't realize is that the treatment strategies are going to be very, very, very similar. Yeah. All right. John C says, I do physical therapy 3 days a week using balance equipment, stretching, parallel bars, and elliptical machine. If I miss a session, I notice it big time. Yeah. Yeah. Ham Sandwich says, with my 4 years of hip and glute atrophy and stretched nerves, my PT has me trying to do laying down marches, snow angels laying down, and on my side, reverse march when prone and glute clenches. Guys, each night, there are so many ways to do exercises. Those of you who have my book, I mean, in my exercise program, there's 150. Let's throw up a QR code. I haven't thrown up a QR code yet. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I have all these great QR codes. Right? So in that program alone, there's 150 exercises for above the knee and below the knee amputee, videos, and 2 books, right? It's a hefty program. And guys, to me, I'm just scratching the surface. And this covers like head to toe strengthening. Those of you who have my book, those of you who subscribe to my video exercises, you've seen there's a lot there to keep you busy. Okay. And when I designed that particular program, I chose what I call the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes exercises that physical therapists have been doing since like the 1950s and 60s with amputees. Okay, tried and true exercises, very simple exercises that can be done from the home without fancy equipment. Okay. And like I was even telling my patient yesterday and my patients this week, it's not how fancy the exercise is. It doesn't have to be like this massively esoteric exercise. It's understanding the muscle strengthening physiology behind it. Okay. You'll notice, those of you who have my book, my favorite exercise for glutes are bridges. Absolute favorite exercise right there. Okay. And when I put you in the phase 1, 2, and 3 of glute strengthening, I'm using the same bridging exercise and I'm just showing you how to modify it, as you get stronger. And I do that with a lot of the exercises in the book. Okay. I have nothing against these fancy exercises and getting creative. And I like to do that sometimes as well. I like to change it up a little so it doesn't get boring, but you can be so effective. And when you're being consistent with the same exercise and doing the routine over and over and over again, okay, incredibly effective. All right. So, speaking of QR codes, we need to kind of kick it over to our sponsors, guys. As you all know, I have four amazing sponsors in 2026. I cannot produce this show. My team and I cannot produce this show without the generosity of our sponsors. So, I'm really, really big on showing my sponsors love. So, guys, I will be throwing up some QR codes tonight, and I am asking you, please, please, please scan these QR codes. Okay. So with College Park has something to say. They say, would you buy a car without test driving it first? Then why would you commit to a prosthetic foot without doing the same? So with College Park's 30-day trial foot program, you can try a custom foot risk-free, no commitment. So scan the QR code that I've just posted up there, or you can visit my website under my Cosi's favorites and learn more. And guys, it's true. 30-day trial program for free to trial a prosthetic foot. Okay. My mom just had to recently, unfortunately, she was in a car accident. Her car got totaled. Thank goodness my mom is okay. But we had to go and buy her a car. Right. And we were test driving a car. And I was just thinking of all the stress involved with, buying a car, And you don't live in your car as much as you live in your prosthetic foot. And you go test drive a car or two or three. Okay. So why wouldn't you do the same with a prosthetic foot? So guys, many of you are always asking, how can we say thank you? How can we support the show? This is my best way that you can say thank you to the folks who help sponsor and make this show possible. So I'm going to leave that up there, and I would love for you guys to click on that QR code and just have a peek and say hello to College Park right there. Let's kick it over to my Instagram folks. We got Eric on board. We've got Harvey on board, Roots of Spice on board, Teresa's on board as well, Majas is on board as well. We got a lot of people. Vicky coming in from Costa Rica. Buenas noches, Vicky. Bienvenida. All right. So let's go back to the chat and just see what you guys are up to right here. Let's see. Stacy says, do you use a slow treadmill with deliberate steps? Especially after Oprah, I walked for miles and miles and it changed the incline often. Here's the funny thing, Stacy. I know that some of my colleagues will use a treadmill. Okay. Some of my colleagues who have a 0G treadmill, that is a very useful tool. We don't have a 0G treadmill in the clinics that I work out of. I'm actually I don't use a treadmill very much. I don't. For me, I like having my hands on a patient. So if there's something going on with the gait that it is not smooth and efficient, I feel like I can do more walking with the patient. Like usually one thing I'll do is I'll be in front of the patient and my hands will be on their hips and I'll be doing my facilitation, whatever. And I might just have them put their hands on my shoulders, right? Just to kind of help a little bit with the balance. And we kind of go from there. It really just depends on, what is going on with the gait and where do I need to be to help them fix it. Now, one of my favorite tricks, okay, and it's my little, and this comes from being a violinist. One of my favorite tricks is using metronome walking. And for me, that's putting the polish on the gait cycle. So once I have my patient where I feel like, okay, their foundation is amazing. They're able to walk without using hands. Their balance is good. And now we just need to get that oomph and that pep in their step. We need to get their cadence, increasing their cadence. And also we need to kind of get them out of their own heads. Right? Because I'm sure many of you can relate, like in saying you've been thinking so much about your gait, like foot here, move there, arm here, do this, be aware of that, right? That you just start getting in your head too much, right? And I see that with my patients, especially towards the tail end of the rehab process, where it's just like, okay, I need to pull you outside of your own head. So I give you something else to focus on, the metronome. Okay. And again, the metronome, if you've never seen one, they come like in pocket sizes and it gives you a beat. Right. And you can adjust the speed, right? So you can make it fast or you can make it slow. Right. And it's a very loud tick-tock noise and it's very steady. Okay. So usually what I'll do with the metronome is I will match it to the patient's current cadence. I don't try to speed them up. I just match them to the cadence. And automatically they start going much more evenly, walking much more evenly, right? They're listening to the tick, tock, tick, and I start to notice that their arm swing starts to improve. Okay. And I put it at a pace that is comfortable for them. mainly just to kind of smooth out that gait pattern. And then over the course of time, I do speed it up very, very slowly. And I absolutely love using that. And my patients are always just like, oh my gosh, because they're so focused on keeping up with the beat that they just walk and the training kicks in, right? And that's how you know that you're just like, yes, we did a good job there, right? We did the foundational gait training. Now we can increase that cadence, get that beautiful, nice, even pattern, and it just smooths out. Let me tell you, that's physical therapist nirvana right there. ASMR, whatever you want to call it, that's where you see it right there with the metronome at the very end. So when it comes to the treadmill, Stacy, where I do like to use the treadmill sometimes is with my amputee runners. Okay. And I'll use it to do sprint training, sprint workouts, things like that nature. But even then, because I live in Florida, and yeah, this is kind of a flex right now, because I live in Florida, I actually try to get my runners outside as much as possible. Okay. I myself am a runner, so I'll use the treadmill if I have to do a sprint workout because I'm very lazy with my sprint workout. So I need something like a treadmill to get me going. Okay. But in that regard, I find that using a metronome is more effective for me than using a treadmill. So hope that answered your question. Susan says, Marshall has done wonders for my confidence. I stopped thinking and I just do it. 2 years ago, I was so nervous on grass. We are walking all over it and lots of different surfaces, and it's amazing. Yeah. It's like, and Susan, you are fearless. You are fearless whenever I see you. Mike says, Cosi Talk book works. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let me go ahead and just, all right, let's keep going down the chat. Virgen Tonia from Cuba in the Cosi Talks house. Viva Cuba. Bienvenidos, bienvenidos, bienvenidos. Gracias por estar aquí. All right. Kelly says, I have a hip disarticulation. I start the prosthetic process next Tuesday, and I think they're making my socket. How much physical therapy do people usually start out doing? I use forearm crutches now, and I hope to only use a cane once I get the prosthetic. Well, first of all, Kelly, congratulations. Getting that first prosthesis and getting fit for that first socket is a truly exciting moment. And it's, I'm sure, like, I'm sure you've been through quite the process with the hip disarticulation. So congratulations on that. Physical therapy, a lot of time, it really just depends, right? So Kelly, when I worked in hospital-based setting where it was insurance, all of my patients were on some flavor of insurance, I would see my patients anywhere from 2, sometimes even 3 times a week, but that was a long time ago. Insurance is getting really, really, really stingy. Okay. So check with your insurance. And then it also depends, are you being seen one-on-one with your physical therapist? Okay. For me, amputees should be seen one-on-one. That's just my policy. I will not apologize for that, and I'm sticking to it. Now, that's many reasons why I decided to leave hospital-based care and clinic care and open up my own practice, because in working for hospitals and working for other clinic settings, I was being told I had to see more than one patient at a time. And that just was not allowing me to deliver quality care. Okay, so those are just things to think about. Now, in my current outpatient setting, okay, because I am seeing my patients one-on-one, there's no tech, it's just me, okay, for a full hour. And a lot of times I go over that hour. We can accomplish so much in that 1 hour that I see my patients sometimes just once a week, okay? And because it is an out-of-pocket cost, I try to work with my patients. Some of my patients can only come see me once every 2 weeks, sometimes even once a month. The progress would be a little bit slower, okay? But we still get a lot done in that one session, okay? And I tell my patients this, and Kelly, I'm going to tell you the same thing. What you do in that physical therapy session, it's kind of the teaching moment, right? I teach my patients what it is they need to do and how to do it correctly. And then when they go home, those other 6 days of the week, they have to be putting in the work, okay? They have to be putting in the work if they want to see progress, okay? And this was the case whether I saw my patients once a week like I do now, or if I saw my patients 2 to 3 times a week in the hospital setting. If I was seeing my patient 2 to 3 times a week and they weren't working on stuff at home, they weren't going to progress. Okay. So these are just things to keep in mind, Kelly. And again, Get to know your insurance. If you're going through your insurance for physical therapy, okay, make sure you keep tabs on it. Like keep tabs on how many visits do I have? What's going to happen when we get to the end of those visits? Are we going to be applying for more visits and writing letters of medical necessity for this? Okay. And your team should be working together. It should be your physical therapist working with your prosthetist, working with your doctor to make sure that all the paperwork is being done to get this approved. Okay. Because as a hip dysarticulation, yeah, you're going to need quite a bit of physical therapy to really optimize your gait. Okay. And someone as young as yourself, from what I see of your thumbnail, you want to be as independent as possible with this. You've worked so hard to get to this point, I'm sure, right? Let's see. Jamie says 51 soon, and I have a spry step and lots of pain. Yeah, Jamie, you're a spring chicken. 51 to me is like super, super young, right? So the pain part is something you would definitely want to address. And again, and I'm sure you've probably already tried addressing this pain before, and just finding out, okay, where is this pain coming from? What can be done to manage this pain? Because yeah, that is a huge part of it for my folks who are prosthetic users. It's usually the comfort of the socket. That's usually what is preventing a lot of folks from being able to get started on their journey to improving their gait and mobility. Okay. And I just realized that's one of the questions on the test that I wrote for that course I'm doing is before you can do anything with your patient, you got to make sure the socket is fitting or orthosis is fitting and address your patient's pain and discomfort if there is any. Yeah. Jamie says used to run. Yeah. So again, Jamie, I don't know where you live in the United States, if you have access to a physical therapist, but again, asking these questions, why am I still having this pain? Where is this pain coming from? What are my options? Okay. Let's see. Chrissy says 6-year amputee, 1-year knee surgery. My husband says that I should be walking better, and now I'm doing my best to say everyone is different and he doesn't care. Okay. And again, Chrissy, there's a lot involved, and I know that there's a lot involved with family members and caregivers, seeing our loved ones suffer and go through an amputation and everything involved in that. And, there's not a lot of education out there as amputees, right? Many of you have stated that prior to becoming amputees yourselves, you didn't know of anybody else who was an amputee, right? You were the first amputee that you knew of, and your family members is probably the same thing. So it's kind of hard to say like, okay, well, how far should you be in your process of mobility? Okay. And now we have something like the Paralympics coming up where we're going to see all these like major rock stars, right, who are jumping off of cliffs and ice skating and doing all sorts of crazy, insane things. And like the sled hockey, holy cow, right? And it's kind of hard not to make comparisons. And I always say comparison is the thief of joy. So Chrissy, the thing is like, just kind of taking a hard look and saying, okay, where am I at right now? Where was I don't know, a year ago, 6 years ago in your case? Okay. Do I feel like I have room for improvement? Okay. For me, the answer is always yes. Whether you are starting out with your mobility or whether you're a Paralympic athlete, there's always room for improvement. Okay. And then just taking a look and saying, what is that's holding me back right now with my mobility? Okay. Is it my prosthesis? Is it my medical health status right now? Am I in the best health I can possibly be in? Am I managing my health well? Okay. Do I have a fear? Are there fears? Are there, mental health obstacles right now that are preventing me from taking those next steps and going to the next level? Okay. And there is sometimes that. There's fear of failure. There's anxiety. There's fear of falling, right? There's fear of disappointing our loved ones. There's fear of, speaking up because we don't want to sound like we're complaining all the time about how our prosthesis fits, right? All of these things getting into play. And it's a matter of just having like that come to Jesus talk with yourself and saying, where can I go from here? And what is it that's stopping me? Just nice and simple right there. Okay. Let's see. Peggy says, above the knee bilateral, does the nerve pain get lighter in the sockets? Peggy, meaning like in wearing the sockets, does the nerve pain get better? Is that what you're trying to ask? Can you kind of specify a little bit more? Donna's asking, how big of a step should I be taking? Well, Donna, the size of your step, a lot of it will be determined by your height. Okay. It'll be determined by your height. In general, where I like to start folks, and this is in my book and in my video exercises, in general, I like to start folks being able to do the square up. Okay. And that's the first basic thing. Everybody who's below the knee, above the knee, unilateral, bilateral, hip disarticulation, they all start with the square up. And it's basically exactly that. You square up both of your feet approximately 4 to 6 inches apart. 4 to 6 inches apart. And that feels that might sound like a lot, but it's not. It's like this far apart, right? And just that process alone, it's like, whoo, it blows people's minds because they've been standing with their feet wide apart. Okay. So sometimes even before I even get to how big of a step you're taking, we just bring those feet in together and put your base of support back to where it needs to be. Now, if you're 6'3", okay, I'm going to give you a little bit more room. But if you're a petite peanut and you're 5 feet tall, okay, then we're going to stick to those 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches, right? And that's where you kind of start. Hey there, Tom, coming in from Canada. Thank you, Tom. So we got 2 Canadians on board today. All right. Stacy says, great topic with the walking and neurologic challenge. I have a lot of lesions, more than 20, but who's counting? Plus 2 very severe lesions in my cervical spine. I'm so happy you are connecting the challenges and difficulties and talking about it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Ham Sandwich says, my biggest thing is holding me back is getting the motivation to do my home exercises. Guys, yeah. That's just part of being human. I'm not going to even tell you guys, and this is probably my kick in the pants that I need, is just holding myself accountable to you guys. I'm not going to tell you the last time I did my strengthening program. It was bad. It was a very long time ago, and I need to get back on it myself. And again, guys, there's no such thing as perfection, right? It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, whatever other analogy you want to put to it. But the point is, recognize it, right? We have our moments and our slumps where we fall off the horse. You fall down 77 times, you get up 78. All right. Ashley says, this is where I believe I am blessed. My PT took my crutch away after about 3 weeks after I got the initial socket. I was terrified, but she had more confidence in my abilities than I did at the time. Even after my revision back in September, she took my crutch away after about 2 weeks and made me do things I didn't think I could. She told me, shut up and do it. Oh my gosh, Ashley. She goes, I owe her so much because last week my prosthetist told me I was walking so well. Okay, that is hysterical. That's hysterical. Yeah, you'll definitely find a common thread among us PTs. We're not exactly cupcakes, right? We don't sugarcoat things. I don't think I've ever told a patient to shut up before because that is a bad word for me in my household. But no, I've had some tough love moments with patients. And guys, oftentimes I do find that, right? I spend a lot. And so when I bring them out of the parallel bars, there's always that transitional time of like, being super afraid. And especially as I take away or sometimes wrestle away the cane or the crutch, right? There's always that moment. But again, no, I can tell when it versus a true strength or balance deficit that will be contributing to walking, right? And that just comes with working in the field for, I've been in healthcare for over 30 years, guys. Most of my life has been spent working in some flavor of healthcare, right? So, after a while you go, yeah, that patient's ready to go. I do have certain markers that I base it on, okay? But yeah, there comes a time where sometimes you got to rip off that Band-Aid out there and walking. And again, that's actually one of my favorite tactics. It kind of distracts the person because they're so busy on making sure they hit that step with each, right? That they can't think about it. The training kicks in and they start to get into autopilot. Cindy, it's good to see you, darling. Good to see you. Let's see. Mike says, I use light GT on the floor and I don't use treadmill and PT and I want normal gait. Yeah. And again, every physical therapist is a little different. Some of my colleagues, they like using the treadmill. Again, some folks have that 0G treadmill, which lightens up the body weight, which is fantastic when you're doing osseointegration and you're doing that weight bearing protocol with osseointegration. I think it's a fantastic tool. I also think it's a fantastic tool if you're able to use it for patients who are more morbidly obese, right? So folks who are in excess of 400 pounds, having some of these devices is very, very helpful because you can get them up in a safer way and get them moving and get their body used to that movement, right? Let's see. Chad is asking, how much heavier is a microprocessor foot? Chad, it really just depends on the maker. The maker. I know that the Odyssey, the QR code I just threw up earlier, the Odyssey IQ by College Park, it is one of the lightest microprocessor feet on the market and one of the lower profile ones. So I think it's one of the fantastic options, but the different manufacturers all have different flavors of microprocessor feet. And if you go into any website, you'll see that's one of the things that they put on there is the weight of each kind of foot. So speaking of amazing sponsors, we're going to kick it over right now to our sponsor from last week, the Sleeve Saver. Okay. Sleeve Saver is asking if you are tired of torn suspension sleeves, Sleeve Saver your liner in minutes and extend and save you money in the process because Sleeve Saver a lot less expensive than replacing that liner. So founded by bilateral amputee Bill Hatton, it is made by someone who truly understands the everyday challenges of amputee life. So interested in becoming an ambassador or trialing some of their new products? Go ahead and click that QR code, guys, and sign up for their updates. So, guys, start clicking that QR code right there and showing Bill some love. Bill was on the show last week, and I got so much lovely feedback from those of you who watched the show about how he seemed like such a genuine human being who wants to help. And I can tell you, yes, it's true, on camera and off camera. Truly a genuinely kind human being. And also just that brilliant mind in there that's constantly like, you can see the gears are constantly turning in there in everything that he creates. You know, he did the Sleeve Saver. He's got the liner dock coming out for liners. He's brought Vital Fit back into the front stage with the skincare products. So again, many of you have indicated that you're going to be ordering some of his products, and I really appreciate that. Some of you said perhaps it's not in your budget right now, but just by clicking on the QR code, guys, you're giving these companies support, and that's what we want because then they can keep supporting the show, which is what I would love to see. All right, let's see. Bobby says, showed up late with watermelon, Red Bull, and Propel water. Let's see, Moet Queen, Moet. I keep saying Moet. I really don't know how to, I have no sophistication there. Moet. I'm just going to call you Queen. Queen 6040 saying, hello, Cosi, water is always good in my cup. Okay, so Peggy, going back to the nerve pain in sockets when you walk. Okay, so Peggy, here's the thing with nerve pain. We got to figure out where it's coming from. And I know that must sound like master of the obvious. And you're like, well, yeah, duh, Cosi, if I knew where it was coming from, it wouldn't have any pain. Okay. But a lot of times what I find is folks will get caught up in the pain and how to make the pain go away. And a lot of times folks will turn to medications and things like that, which I'm not against medication. But I think the focus when it comes to nerve pain is let's chase down the root cause. Okay. Why are we having nerve pain? Is it coming from a neuroma? Is it a phantom pain that's perhaps even being caused by neuroma? Okay. Is there something in the residual limb, like a bone spur, like scar tissue, that is triggering that nerve pain? Is it coming from the spine? Is it coming from the back? What is causing the nerve pain? Okay. And Peggy, wearing sockets, unfortunately, that's not going to be a cure-all for the nerve pain. Okay. Many common causes are, like I said, the neuroma, bone spur, and scar tissue. Okay. If that's compressing up on the nerves, that's going to shoot off the pain. If we can find what it is that's causing it, that can help guide us in those treatments better. Okay. And wearing a socket, and many people usually when they have the nerve pain, wearing a socket can sometimes even aggravate it, especially if it's pushing up against that neuroma there. Okay. So again, Peggy, I would love to know just maybe a little bit more details in terms of where do you feel the pain? If I had to tell you with your fingers, show me where the pain is, can you point to a specific area? What triggers the pain? Okay. Are you stressed out and then the pain gets triggered? Do you find in certain positions that you're sitting in that it pushes up, or the socket pushing up against a certain part, that the pain will be triggered? Again, trying to put all these clues together to help us come up with the right picture there. Jerry Ann is asking, if you have a tiny hole, like a pinhole on my stump, could it heal if I could stand up with prosthetics? I've been in a wheelchair for a couple of years. Okay, no, Jerry Ann, when it comes to any kind of skin abrasions, I'm like very rigid. And I say the prosthesis needs to stay off. Okay. And when I see a pinhole or any kind of a neat little hole, I actually go, what's underneath that? Okay. And sometimes it really is just like a little pinhole, and you can see the bottom of that pinhole, and it's right there on the surface, and it just needs a little time to close up and heal up and da da da. But if I see a little hole and I'm looking in and I can't see the bottom of that wound bed, that's when I start going, what's going on here? Okay. And no, wearing a prosthesis is not going to help it heal. If anything, it'll do the opposite. It'll do quite the opposite. And I'm thinking of one of my patients right now. We are fresh off of that right now. Where she had a blister, and the prosthetist, she went in to see the prosthetist, and the prosthetist just patted her socket and told her to keep wearing her socket, and it turned into a horrific nightmare of a wound. So, when it comes to that tiny hole, Jerry Ann, again, nothing should be on it. And if it's not healing, you need to go see your doctor. You need to go see a wound care specialist to find out why it's not healing and how you can get it to heal. Okay. Bill, good to have you here, man. Good to have you. Bill says he's got legs and he knows how to use them. Oh yeah. Strut your stuff, Bill. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's see. Ashley says, my PT and I have that relationship. She asked me to do something. I ask her, what are you smoking? And she tells me to shut up and do it. And the rest of the clinic loves our banter. We have decided that going forward, a preceptor should totally have to spend a session with us. I would love to be a fly on that wall, Ashley. I would love to be a fly on that wall. Oh, Robert says we need another sponsor QR code. Okay, well, I threw up the sleeve saver. We got two more. Actually, we have our first commercial. Guys, we're getting fancy here on the Cosi Talk Show. We actually have a commercial for one of our sponsors tonight. Let's see. Bobby says, can you put a link to Sleeve Saver in the comments? Oh, yes. Let me do that. Thank you for saying that, Bobby. And thank you for reminding me about that. sleevesaver.com. Okay. So there's in the comments. And guys, you can always go to my website. If you go to my website, cositalks.com, and you look under my tab that says Cosi's Favorites, each of my sponsors has their own website, and it's chock full of information about them, links about them, all sorts of things. So if you can't remember who are my sponsors, how do I find them? CosiTalks.com. It's all on my website right there. Queen is saying it's I don't even know how to pronounce the champagne girl. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't have that sophistication level. So like I said, I'm just gonna have to call you Queenie. Queen 6040. Queen 6040. I need a grammar lesson on how to pronounce Moye. No, I give up. You're too fancy for me. You're just too fancy for me, Queenie. All right, there we go. Just Another Humankind just joined on board. J.O. Acosta just on board as well. So guys from the Instagram channel, welcome. All right, let's get another one of these questions here. Guys, click that QR code. Click it. All right, let's see. Pop19 is asking, how would one know if advanced prosthetic and ankles feet are viable, such as the satch foot compared to the single axis compared to multi-axis, and viable as in meaning if I start off with a satch foot, okay, and I graduate from there, do people ever go from satch to multi-axis or to the energy storing and return and skipping ahead to a more sophisticated version of the foot and ankle? And the answer is a resounding yes. And actually, guys, I'm going to send you back to my website. Okay. And I just put it there in the comments section, www.cositalks.com. And I'm going to put it here for my Instagram folks. Okay. I have a blog that, yes, I need to resurrect and put some new articles in there. But in the articles in the blog, I've written two articles. Number one, everything you have to know about prosthetic feet. That's one article. The second one is, how do you go about choosing a prosthetic foot? Okay. So when it comes to the classifications of feet, Pop19 is already ahead of the game. He understands the differences between a satch foot, single axis, multi-axial, energy storing, dynamic response, and all of these feet. And if I'm like spinning your head right now with all of these names, guys, go read the blog article. I lay it out very nice and easy to read. And I also have downloadable cheat sheets so you can have for a reference. Okay. I like to make it easy. And simple. Okay. So the answer, Pop19, is yes. Yes, you can graduate to a higher level of functioning foot. Okay. If you have a satch foot, and I'm looking at mine over there, it's just way too far ahead for me to reach over. If you have a satch foot, it's a very simple foot. It's SACH, solid ankle cushion heel foot. It's a very simple wooden foot, super sturdy. Okay. Very stable. Okay. It used to be all I ever used on my patients because that was all that was available 20 plus years ago when I first started practicing, right? But the downside of it is it's very heavy, it's cumbersome, it doesn't give you a lot of mobility, okay? But sometimes folks will get this as their first prosthetic foot because when you're first learning to walk with a prosthesis, you may not be ready for a hoopy scoopy mobile foot. You might need a foot that gives you more stability, okay? But then as you get more experienced with your walking, okay, that foot might start holding you back. And that's when you speak to your neighborhood friendly prosthetist in conjunction with your PT to decide, okay, what is the next step foot for you? Okay. And usually the questions I like to ask is, does my patient need more stability or does my patient need more mobility? Okay. If I'm leaning more towards, yeah, they're ready to graduate from the satch foot, but they still need a stable connection with the ground. They need a lot of stability. I might look at something like a hydraulic foot or suggest that they trial a hydraulic foot. Okay. If I have someone who's like bouncing off the walls and doing cartwheels and has a very active lifestyle, then we're going to probably look more towards mobility, things like the multi-axials, things that have energy storing or dynamic response component to it. And there's a lot of feet out there now that combine both of those characteristics into one foot. And there's a plethora of those feet from all sorts of different companies out there. Okay. So yes. But the other thing I want you guys to always keep in mind, whether you're choosing a prosthetic foot or a prosthetic knee, you need to choose the component that fits your current level of mobility and lifestyle. Okay. So if the person next to you is just like, oh my gosh, I just got the latest technology, the latest foot that they just put out there is made out of like airplane parts and it can leap tall buildings in a single bound. And you're thinking, well, that's the foot I want, right? You need to get the foot that's going to best suit your mobility. Okay. And I've seen this happen on many occasions where someone talked their prosthetist into getting the newest foot out there with the best technology and they're falling all over the place because they don't have the mobility yet to be able to handle that foot. Does that make sense, guys? And a lot of times, guys, like the best analogy on that one is like when you have a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old who just has that bright, shiny new license, you don't hand them the keys to the Porsche, right? You start them on the Ford Pinto. You get them comfortable there. Okay. And then as they get older, they can decide, do they want to go with something like a Toyota Camry, a nice, sturdy, reliable car? Do they want to get the little Mazda Miata and handle a little sports car, right? Then you start looking at those different types of options. Both cars are good, solid cars, right? We can argue about cars all night, right? But I think we can agree Toyota Camry is good, solid car. Mazda Miata, it's been voted as actually one of the best sports cars ever made, believe it or not. Okay. But there are two very different types of driving cars, and what suits one person is not going to suit the other in terms of their lifestyle. Yeah, capiche? Okay. Mike brings up a very good point. Peggy could possibly be experiencing low back pain. It could be the sciatic nerve that's being triggered there. There's a lot of possibilities there, And again, I find that a lot of my folks get very frustrated because they'll go to the doctor and a very well-meaning doctor will want to give their patient relief from the pain. So they'll give them pain medication or they'll do a bunch of other things. And not as much time is spent in finding the root cause of that nerve pain. Okay. And that's something that I think is a disservice. And again, a lot of times what I find is that sometimes our doctors are not necessarily well versed in amputee care. They may only see a few amputee patients, if that, in their practice, right? It's not something that they see over and over and over again, like some of the specialists that we've had on the show, right? Bill saying, come on, Cosi, I had a Pinto. See, my first car was an 88 Ford Escort, guys. 88 Ford Escort. Bill's asking, what's our thoughts on the Phil Hour All Pro? I love it. It's probably, if I had to name my top 5 favorite prosthetic feet, Phil, our All Pro, makes that cut right there. I find it to be a great sporty foot, and I like and it fits a very wide variety of patients, which is very unusual to see that with a foot. It fits a very wide variety of activity levels. Definitely made more for the higher activity level. But I've seen all sorts of different body types use it very successfully. For my very active patients that are interested in running, I really like the All Pro because I can teach a patient how to run on that foot, even though it's their walking everyday foot. We can teach them the basic mechanics of running before graduating them to a running blade. So it's a great foot to kind of get the habits of the running mechanics there. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee from my new coffee mug. What do you think? I just realized I still have the tag on the bottom. I probably should take that off, right? All right. So Peggy says, pain in my stub ends inside the sockets. Okay. So if the pain is being triggered while you're wearing your socket, Peggy, then again, this is something that you want to take back to your prosthetist and just say, I keep having pain at the end of my stump in the socket. It could be that you are bottoming out in the socket, meaning that the end of your residual limb is hitting the bottom of the socket, which it should not be doing. And that will certainly send zingers of pain going through the limbs. Okay. So again, if it's the socket fit, this is something that you need to continue to address with the prosthetist. And this is something that, again, for my newer amputees, I like for them to understand, guys, you should not have pain when wearing your sockets. Okay. No pain. Is there discomfort from wearing a socket? Yeah, there can be discomfort, especially in the beginning when you're first learning to use sockets and getting used to having something encasing the limb during the day. Okay. But that should get better over time as you get used to it. And there should be no pain. There should be no pain. Okay. And if it means having to go back to your prosthetist every week, okay, then you need to go back to your prosthetist every week and they need to keep working with you until they find a solution for that. Okay. All right. So speaking of post-amputation pain, Neuromuscular wants to know if you are living with chronic phantom limb pain or residual limb pain. The Cosi Talks show is proud to partner with Neuromuscular, the makers of the Altius system, the first and only FDA-approved device to aid in the management of chronic post-amputation pain in adults with lower limb amputations. So make sure that you click the QR code, and it's coming up right now, to visit neurosmedical.com to learn more. And they will be coming on the show, guys. Their first show will be April 1st. I'm really excited. We're meeting with their team tomorrow to talk about the content of the show. And again, when it comes, and we've touched upon it already tonight, when it comes to chronic pain, nerve pain associated with amputation, again, there could be several causes. Okay. And depending on the cause will determine the right course of treatment. And in my opinion, I think you should be aware of all the different options out there. And Neuromuscular with their Altia system, this is another option and potential resource for you. So again, this is something that you can just learn about. Just look through their website, learn about it, talk to your doctors, talk to your prosthetist, come to the show on April 1st, and just see what you think. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Linda says, I've tried finally and found the right one that allows me to wear my cowgirl boots with the stability, right? In terms of the different prosthetic feet. Mark says, Filler All Pro XTS is a wonderful choice for sure. It's the foot I use most and I change between 4 feet now. That's really good. Robert says, is it unusual not to know your K number? I went wheelchair to jackrabbit very rapidly. No, it's not unusual. Again, the K levels are something that were instituted by Medicare as a way to grade the mobility level of amputees. Many physical therapists and prosthetists will tell you that they think that the method is outdated and needs a makeover, and I agree. It's not a perfect system, and it's a system by which insurance companies can determine, okay, this is your mobility level, which means this is the prosthetic componentry that would be best suited for your mobility level. Sometimes that can work to your advantage. A lot of times it does not. it's a whole hot mess. But no, it's not unusual for people to not know their K level. Okay. If you're struggling with your insurance to get prosthetic componentry approved, chances are that's when you know your K level. All right. My pleasure, Peggy. And again, please keep coming back to the show, guys. I'm going to go ahead and throw out my email up here. This is my email address. I check it. I don't have an assistant. I've been asking Santa Claus for assistant. She still hasn't arrived by mail. So in the meantime, I am answering all of my emails, and I'm happy to do so, guys. Happy to do so. Any questions that you may have regarding amputation, whether you want to ask me before you forget, or that you feel more comfortable asking me in the privacy of an email, please feel free to email me. I answer within a couple of business days. And I do want to tell you guys, I have been running a little bit behind. If for whatever reason I don't answer your email within 2 business days, send me another one. I do not mind. I do not mind if you nudge me and give me a little nudge in the ribs and say, hey, Cosi, you haven't answered my message, do so. Another way to reach me is through my texting service, guys. Please, 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 let's get these numbers up. This is a great way to communicate with me. If you text Cosi Talks, all one word, to that number, you will be able to text me your questions directly, and you will also get the links whenever I go live on the show. And as a bonus, when you first sign on, you get a nice little discount code for that strong body program of exercises I was telling you about. Yes? All right, we covered all the housekeeping. Let's keep going with the questions. All right, let's see. Ooh, here's a good question from Emily. Emily is asking, can you talk about weight management as an amputee? If I remember correctly, amputees have to use more energy to do activities, and the more energy you use, the more calories you burn. But I know a lot of amputees, myself included, who have a hard time losing weight. And I know being in a wheelchair makes losing weight even more difficult. I've been on a weight loss journey, calorie deficit, and making sure I eat enough protein, which is a challenge, for over a year with few results. And I'm waiting for approval for Zepbound. Okay, so guys, there's a lot going on here. So as an amputee, right, we measure how much, one of the ways that we measure how much energy a person is using is by how much oxygen they use. And we call that VO2, volume of oxygen, right? So when a person becomes an amputee and they start walking or moving around, they're using their VO2 increases, meaning they're having to use a lot of oxygen to do activity compared to someone who has 2 anatomical legs. Okay. However, their max capacity to perform a task, and we call that VO2 max. You may have heard that terminology in athletes and things like that. It's actually less. So their potential is actually lower. So they're working harder and they're achieving a lower potential. Okay. So that's why you feel like you're burning a lot of energy, but somehow that doesn't result in weight loss. Like somehow you're just like, why do I feel like I'm burning so much energy, but the weight is still piling on? Okay. And then another thing to think about is, when it comes to nutrition and weight loss in an amputee, and this is something that I'm learning more and more and more about, there's so much more involved than just counting calories, right? The age-old adage has been calories in has to be less than calories out, okay? And we can go back to research studies and everything like that, okay? What we're starting to find is there's a lot more nuance there, okay? And you hit upon it right there when you were talking about your protein intake, okay? One thing I'm learning, and especially the differences between men and women when it comes to weight loss, okay? We're starting to learn more about the effects of hormones during a woman's life and how that affects the weight loss. And we're talking about as early as a woman in her early 30s, starting to experience symptoms of perimenopause. As early as her early 30s, she might still be in the childbearing ages, right? And she could be experiencing hormonal fluctuations that are going to affect these things. Okay. Another thing is autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is now the most common autoimmune disease in the United States. Okay. And it greatly affects women. We even have now men that are having to show this disease as well. And that's going to greatly affect how you manage your weight. Okay. So it's a lot more involved than just calories in and calories out. Okay. I do recommend the services of a nutritionist or a dietitian. Me personally, and this is a personal recommendation. This is not necessarily a professional recommendation. I love the field of functional medicine and seeing how they are looking at nutrition and looking at getting to the root cause of why perhaps someone is having trouble losing weight. And it's something I'm still learning about myself, guys, right? And it does not fall within the realm of physical therapy. So that's why I'm telling you, you need to go out there and do your homework on these things. But in a general recommendation, yes, I often recommend my amputee patients to go seek the services of a dietitian, a registered licensed dietitian, or a license. When nutritionists don't, it's not a license the way a dietitian is, but to seek out the services of someone who does professional coaching for nutrition and diet and for weight loss. I think it pays dividends. And now we have a lot of tools such as the GLP-1s and peptides and things like that, tirzepatide, semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, all these names that you're hearing nowadays, the Zepbound. And I have nothing against these medications, but they need to be used responsibly. They need to be used responsibly. And when I mean responsibly, I mean under the care of either a nurse practitioner, advanced clinical nurse practitioner, who's working under an MD. Okay. Those are my thoughts. Okay, so if you're going to be taking any of these particular medications, whether it's a GLP-1, any of these kind of medications, you need to do it, okay, under the services of a doctor. And they need to be monitoring you. You need to be under the services of a clinician who is monitoring you, okay? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, GI Jane is in the house. FYI, stage 2 surgery starts in the morning. Finally, Yahoo, Wahoola, Jane. I am so glad to hear that, girlfriend. I am so glad your surgeon is back stateside. Cannot wait to see you go. Cannot wait to see you go on that one, girlfriend. All right, guys, I've been telling you I have a commercial tonight. Can I show you my commercial and hopefully everything goes well with the tech? So one of our platinum sponsors this year is Integrum. They are the makers of the Oprah implant system for osseointegration. And they have a very special person here who wants to tell you a little bit about his experience.
It takes 8 seconds to put my leg on, and I can walk right out the same way I walked in. The Oprah system is just absolutely life-changing.
All right, guys. And if you recognize that handsome gentleman, that is Glenn. He is one of their ambassadors, and he is no stranger to the show. He has been on the show, and you can go see his story on the Integrum YouTube channel, okay, which I'm going to post it right there for you. And you can also hear the stories of the rest of their ambassadors on there. And I believe one of their beautiful ambassadors was on tonight. Stacy has been there. Let's see, we got Kim saying, if a woman in menopause or perimenopause is taking insulin, they will gain weight and A1C goes up, et cetera. It's because we need extra to get insulin into the cells, and now we're losing estrogen needed. Yes. And it's complex. Like again, it is not something that falls within the scope of a physical therapist. Let me just say it that way. But in just learning and trying to wrap my head around things, it's so much that we're learning about the role of gut health and how it affects hormones in a woman and men. Okay. And then how it affects insulin resistance, and glucose in the body. It really is taking a step back and looking at the body as a whole and not just as an individual system. Okay. And there's so much that we are learning here with these new advances that we're seeing. And it's really interesting again. And, you got to get out there. You got to do your research, and find the practitioners who really can take a look at the whole body and preventative care. And I really do strongly believe in that. It's how I practice my physical therapy, in my own clinic, in terms of finding the root causes of things. As a physical therapist, a licensed physical therapist, that's how we are trained to work and how to treat and diagnose and assess our patients, right? We're trained to go to the root cause. Why is the person having pain? It's not just about alleviating the pain. It's finding out, well, why did they get the pain in the first place? And it may not have originated where they're feeling the pain. right? We got to trace it back to its origin. For me, specializing in amputee gait training, okay, I want to know why is my patient having trouble walking? What is the true root cause? If they're having something like phantom pain, for example, let's not just throw medication at it. Let's find out what is behind it, what is triggering it, and what is causing it, right? So, as physical therapists, I see a lot of my colleagues getting interested in the realm of nutrition because I think we're already trained in that regard to get to the root cause of a problem. A little bit of a soapbox right there. Hey, you like that commercial, right? Right? We're getting fancy here. Like I'm telling you, we're getting fancy. Can you put the phantom pain code up, please? Yes, I will put that back up there, Peggy. And actually, you can also go to Neuros. I'm going to put it here down here in the comments, neurosmedical.com. Okay. So you can visit them. And again, Peggy, obviously I don't know your case intimately, so I don't know the details of the case, but for me, it's the more you can educate yourself on the different options, the more you can open up these conversations with your clinicians, with your doctor, taking it back to them and saying, hey, look, is this something that's appropriate for me? Or can we look into this and just see where is this pain coming from? Again, going back to that prosthetist and saying, hey, when I wear my sockets, my nerve pain starts to go off with fireworks. Can we figure out where this is coming from? Okay. And don't give up on that, Peggy. Don't give up. Hey, Glenn, you know that guy? Yeah, man, he's trouble, but we like to have him on the show. He's trouble. We like to have him on the show. All right. So everything quiet on the Instagram channel. Let me just check, guys. Let me check. Okay, we've got time. No, actually, we don't have time. Scott, I know you have a question up here for me, and I'm going to save it for next week, darling. I promise you I'm not going to forget about you. All right, you got a great question on suspension that deserves to have a full answer there. All right, guys. Oh, I am talked out. I am talked out. It must be the coffee mug. It's all, you like that plug, guys? You see how I snuck that one in there? All right, guys, keep your eyes peeled. I will be posting information on how you guys can be a cool kid and get the new cool kid coffee mug from Cosi Talks, and a couple of other cool things coming down the line as well. But guys, as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. Please visit my website, www.cositalks.com. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Rumble, TikTok, LinkedIn. Did I get them all, guys? Did I get them all? Okay. Go follow me. Go to my website, give my sponsors some love, and show them the support and say thank you for their support as well. Okay, guys, I am talked out. I am going to go to bed. All right, guys. It was a lot of fun talking to you guys this evening. I will see you guys